In this tutorial, we'll explore how Tablesmith handles different input and output number formats. First, let's take a quick look at the example table. As you can see, this table contains sales data. We'll focus on two columns: transaction date, which stores dates, and standard cost, which contains formatted numbers. Let's create our first pipeline and import columns from a file. We will convert both transaction date and standard cost columns to text within this pipeline. This approach avoids the need to handle input formats. Tablesmith will automatically encode dates and numbers based on the cell format, but the output will be plain text. However, this method has a drawback. You won't be able to perform number or date-related operations within the pipeline. Additionally, Excel or Google Sheets might not automatically convert the data back to numbers or dates upon import. Let's examine the output CSV file. It appears to be identical to the input file. Let's create a second pipeline where we keep the original column types. Since transaction date and standard cost are already defined as date and number in source file, Tablesmith will import the raw values directly. The format during import becomes irrelevant. However, as we'll see later, the format becomes important for the output. Let's generate an output file. The formatting will inherit from the input column definitions. During column importing, Tablesmith will attempt to infer the most common cell format by scanning the top 50 rows of the table. It's important to note that this automatic format detection only works for XLSX files. CSV files lack cell formatting information, and all data is treated as plain text, preventing Tablesmith from automatically inferring the format. If you define the column manually in the Input tab, a default format will be applied. Let's customize the output format for transaction date and standard cost columns. In XLSX files, the chosen format will be applied as the cell number format. For CSV files, the format will be directly applied to the value since they lack formatting information. JSON files will ignore number formats and directly apply the date format. Let's create an XLSX output file using different formats to clearly demonstrate how formatting works. Here are the generated CSV and XLSX files. As you can see, the different formats have been applied successfully to the output data. In our third pipeline, we'll demonstrate how to manually set input formats. We'll use a CSV file as an example, since CSV files lack inherent formatting information. Similar to the previous pipeline, let's start by changing the column types to date and number. Then we'll create an output and run the pipeline. This error indicates that Tablesmith is unable to interpret the transaction date value as a date because the input is plain text. Tablesmith attempts to parse text into dates based on specific formats, but since we haven't defined a format in the input settings, the parsing fails. Let's address this by manually defining the input format. The standard cost column also encounters parsing issues. To address this, we'll change its type back to text. Let's examine the output.